Adewale crouches in the moonless backyard, his calloused hands sorting crisp Naira notes into neat towers while the wet, desperate cough of his daughter Zora trembles through the compound walls like a death rattle. Money doesn't spoil, but children do, he whispers to the darkness, pressing the currency into the rusted trunk with the tenderness he's never shown his own blood. He buries it deeper beneath the chicken droppings and red clay, his fingers working frantically as if the earth itself might judge him, blind to the fact that before tomorrow's market opens, he'll be clawing at this same dirt, begging it to trade back even a single note for one more hour of his daughter's labored breathing. Adewale is known throughout the village as the iron contractor, a man whose back never breaks and whose wallet never opens. He wants to construct an unbreachable fortress of wealth between his family and the world, go, but his flaw is a suffocating miserliness. He has confused deprivation with protection, starvation with strategy. We watch as Amina Ifunanya stands hollow-eyed over a pot of water pretending to be soup, stirring nothing into less than nothing, while young Emeka Sadiq presses his face against the window watching his father return from jobs with pockets bulging and hands empty, his small fist clenching tighter each night as hunger sharpens into something far more dangerous than need. The morning after the burial ritual, Adewale wakes before dawn and checks the chicken coop with the urgency of a man guarding a corpse. The trunk is still there, undisturbed beneath the straw and filth. He exhales slowly, then returns to the house where Amina is already awake, boiling water for a tea they cannot afford to sweeten. She doesn't look at him anymore, not directly. Her gaze slides past him like he's a ghost she's learned to live with. The children need breakfast, she says quietly, her voice flat as old wood. They ate yesterday, Adewale replies, pulling on his work boots. Hunger teaches discipline. He leaves before she can respond, his contractor's bag slung over his shoulder, heavy with tools but no food. The village thinks he's broke. They see the peeling paint on his house, the torn mosquito nets, the way his children's clothes hang loose on their bones. What they don't see is the black ledger he keeps in his shirt pocket, every page filled with calculations in cramped handwriting, figures that would make a banker weep with envy. Adewale has 4.3 million naira buried in his backyard. He has memorized the serial numbers of the oldest notes. He knows the exact weight of the trunk down to the gram. And every night, he counts it all again, whispering the total like a prayer, convinced that the moment he stops watching, the money will vanish, and the hunger he grew up with will return to swallow him whole. But he's already being swallowed. He just doesn't know it yet. Amina Ifunanya used to sing while she cooked. That was before the portion started shrinking, before she learned to stretch a handful of gari across 3 days, before she had to choose which child got the last spoonful. This morning, there is no singing. She places a single piece of bread on the table, no butter, no jam, just the dry, crumbling loaf she bought 2 days ago. Emeka and Zora sit across from each other, their eyes locked on the bread like it's the only thing tethering them to the world. Split it, Amina whispers, turning away so they won't see her cry. Emeka, 9 years old and already learning the mathematics of survival, tears the bread in half. But Zora's hands are shaking. She's too weak to hold her piece steady. Emeka watches her struggle, then silently slides his portion onto her plate. Emeka, no. I'm not hungry, Mama. The lie sits heavy in the room, thick as smoke. Amina presses her knuckles to her mouth, biting down hard enough to taste blood. Through the window, she can see Adewale in the yard, crouched near the coop, his hands moving in the dirt like he's planting something sacred. She knows what he's hiding there. She's known for years. And every day she says nothing, she becomes a little more complicit in the slow death of her own children. Zora coughs, a wet, rattling sound that seems too big for her small body. Emeka's jaw tightens. Amina closes her eyes. The bread is gone in seconds. The hunger remains. 23 years ago, Adewale was a different kind of desperate. He had just finished secondary school with no money, no connections, and a gnawing terror that he'd end up like his father, a man who died in a gutter, pockets empty, belly hollow. So when Chief Obinna approached him at the motor park with an offer, Adewale didn't ask questions. He just said yes. You carry this bag to Enugu, the chief had said, his gold rings glinting in the afternoon sun. You don't open it. You don't lose it. You bring it back to me in 3 days, and I'll pay you 50,000 naira. 50,000. More money than Adewale had ever seen. He took the job. He carried the bag. But on the second night, curiosity and fear got the better of him, and he unzipped it in a dim hotel room. Inside were stacks of American dollars and Naira notes, millions, wrapped in plastic and smelling faintly of diesel and ink. Adewale's hands had trembled as he zipped it back up. He knew what this was. Blood money. Election funds. Bribes that would never be accounted for. When he returned to the motor park, Chief Obinna was gone. Vanished. No forwarding address. No phone number. Just a burned-out car near the river and rumors of a government raid. Adewale kept the money. He told himself he'd return it when it was safe. But safe never came. And the hunger that had once clawed at his ribs became something else, a fear so deep it turned him into the very thing he swore he'd never be. A man who couldn't let go. Zora's fever starts on a Tuesday. By Wednesday, her skin is hot enough to scald. Amina begs Adewale to take her to the clinic. He refuses. It's just malaria, he says dismissively. It'll pass. But it doesn't pass. By Thursday evening, Zora is shivering violently beneath a thin blanket, her lips cracked and pale. Amina, frantic, drags Adewale to the local chemist, a man named Mr. Choku who sells medicine out of a tin-roofed shack. Antimalarials, Choku says, pulling a blister pack from a dusty shelf. 2,000 Naira. Adewale's face hardens. That's robbery. That's the price. I give you 500. Choku's eyes narrow. Your daughter is burning up, and you're bargaining. Business is business. The two men argue while Amina holds Zora against her chest, rocking her gently, whispering promises she knows she can't keep. Finally, Choku throws the pack on the counter and waves them out. Take it. I don't want your blood on my hands. Adewale pockets the pills without a word of thanks. Outside, Amina stares at him with something beyond anger, something colder, more final. You have millions buried in our backyard, she says quietly. And you haggled over 2,000 Naira to save your daughter's life. Adewale doesn't respond. He just walks ahead, his shoulders tight, his fist clenched. Because deep down, beneath all the justifications and fears, he knows she's right. And he's terrified of what that means. Emeka sees his father counting the money on a Friday night. He's supposed to be asleep, but hunger keeps him awake, sharp and restless. So he slips out of bed and moves through the dark house like a shadow, following the faint glow of the kerosene lamp in the backyard. Through the slats of the chicken coop, he watches. Adewale sits cross-legged in the dirt, the rusted trunk open before him like an altar. His hands move reverently over the stacks of bills, his lips moving in silent calculation. There's more money in that trunk than Emeka has ever imagined, enough to feed them for years, to buy medicine, to repair the roof, to give Zora the childhood she deserves. And his father is burying it. Emeka's hands curl into fists. The hunger he's carried for so long twists into something sharper, hotter, rage. Not the wild, explosive kind, but the cold, deliberate kind that plans and waits. He thinks of Zora's hollow cheeks. He thinks of his mother's silent tears. He thinks of the bread he gave away this morning, and the lie he told, and the way his stomach still cramps even now. And he makes a vow. If his father won't save them, then he will. He doesn't know how yet. But as he watches Adewale lock the trunk and bury it again, Emeka feels something inside him shift, a line crossed, a decision made. Sometimes, there are moments in a story where you realize the child you're watching will never be a child again. Maybe you felt that shift in your own life, the moment you stopped waiting for rescue and became the one who had to act. If this story is stirring something in you, stay with us. The hardest parts are still ahead. The rain comes on a Saturday, violent and sudden, like the sky finally cracking under the weight of too many unsaid prayers. It hammers the tin roof with a sound like gunfire. Water pours through the gaps, pulling on the concrete floor. Amina rushes to move the sleeping mats, but it's useless, everything is already soaked. Zora is worse. The pills did nothing. Her fever has climbed so high she started mumbling incoherent words, her small hands clawing at invisible things in the air. Amina presses a wet cloth to her forehead, but it's like trying to cool molten iron. We need to get her to the hospital, Amina says, her voice breaking. Now, Adewale. Right now. Adewale stands by the window, watching the storm. The roads are flooded. No vehicle will come. Then we carry her. In this. He gestures to the sheets of rain. She'll drown before we reach the junction. She'll die if we don't try. Adewale turns, his face hard. We wait. The rain will stop. But the rain doesn't stop. It intensifies, howling through the compound like something alive, something hungry. And in the corner, Zora's breathing becomes shallow, ragged, each inhale a labor, each exhale a gamble. Emeka watches from the doorway, his jaw tight, his hands shaking. He's done waiting. He's done listening. While his parents argue, he slips into the storm. Emeka finds the shovel leaning against the side of the house, its blade rusted but sharp enough. The rain soaks him instantly, cold and relentless, but he doesn't stop. He knows where the trunk is buried. He's watched his father dig it up 100 times. He reaches the chicken coop and drives the shovel into the mud. The earth is soft from the rain, yielding quickly. Emeka digs with a fury he didn't know he had, his muscles screaming, his breath coming in gasps. He's almost there when he hears the voice behind him. Step away from that hole. Adewale stands in the rain, the kerosene lamp in one hand, a machete in the other. His face is twisted into something Emeka barely recognizes, something fairer, desperate. It's for Zora, Emeka shouts over the storm. She's dying. That money is not yours to take. It's not yours either. Adewale lunges. Emeka tries to dodge, but his father is faster, stronger. They collide, crashing into the mud, the shovel spinning away. Emeka fights back, clawing, kicking, but Adewale pins him down, his forearm pressed against his son's throat. You don't understand, Adewale hisses. If I lose this money, we lose everything. We already have nothing. In the struggle, the kerosene lamp falls. It hits the dry hay stacked inside the coop, and for a moment, nothing happens. Then the world ignites. The fire spreads faster than thought, faster than regret. The dry hay catches first, then the wooden beams, then the thatched roof. Within seconds, the entire coop is a roaring inferno, the flames climbing into the rain-soaked night like something biblical, something final. Adewale releases Emeka and stumbles toward the trunk, his hands reaching, grasping. The heat slams into him like a wall, scorching his skin, singeing his eyebrows. He can see the trunk through the flames, still buried, but the metal is already glowing red. No, no, no. He tries to dig, but the earth is too hot, the smoke too thick. His millions, his safety, his God, are melting into slag, the currency curling and blackening, the plastic wrapping bubbling into toxic fumes. Behind him, Amina screams. Forget the money. Zora needs you. But Adewale can't hear her. All he can hear is the roar of the fire and the sound of his entire world collapsing. He drops to his knees in the mud, watching the only thing he ever loved burn. Emeka staggers to his feet, coughing, his eyes streaming. He looks at his father, this broken, pathetic man, and feels nothing. No anger. No pity. Just a hollow, aching emptiness. The rain begins to extinguish the flames, but it's too late. The damage is done. And in the distance, over the dying crackle of the fire, comes the wail of sirens. The fire brigade arrives first, then the police. They douse the smoldering wreckage with foam and water, pulling apart the charred remains of the coop. One of them finds the trunk, melted, twisted, but unmistakably full of burnt currency. Sweet Jesus, the officer mutters, pulling out a half-intact note. He squints at the serial number, then freezes. He radios his superior. Within an hour, the compound is swarming with federal agents. Adewale sits in the mud, his hands cuffed behind his back, his face blank. He doesn't resist. He doesn't speak. He just watches as they dig up the evidence of his entire double life, the ledger, the manifest, the photographs he didn't know existed, all linking him to Chief Obinna and a money laundering operation that collapsed decades ago. You've been on a watch list for 20 years, the lead investigator says, crouching beside him. "We thought you were dead. Turns out you were just hiding in plain sight, starving your own family to avoid suspicion." Amina stands in the doorway, holding Zora, her face carved from stone. Emeka stands beside her, his hand on his sister's back, his eyes locked on his father. The investigator stands, motioning to his officers. "Take him." As they drag Adewale to the van, he turns one last time to look at his family. Amina meets his gaze, and then, slowly, deliberately, she closes the door. The sound of that door shutting is the loudest thing Adewale has ever heard. 3 months later, Adewale sits alone in the ruins of his house. The trial was swift. The evidence, overwhelming. He's awaiting sentencing, likely 15 years. But the legal punishment is nothing compared to the other kind. Amina took the children and left. No forwarding address. No phone number. Just a note on the table that read, "We are finally free." Zora survived. Emeka made sure of it. After the fire, neighbors pulled their money, people Adewale had called wasteful 4 years, and paid for her hospital stay. She recovered. And when she was strong enough, Amina took her and Emeka and disappeared into the city, where nobody knew their name or their shame. Adewale walks through the compound now, his footsteps echoing in the empty rooms. The walls are scorched. The roof leaks. The backyard is a crater of ash and mud. He crouches where the trunk used to be and digs his fingers into the dirt, searching for any scrap of currency, any proof that his years of sacrifice meant something. He finds nothing. And in that nothingness, he finally understands. He spent his whole life building a fortress against poverty, but the real poverty was always inside him, the inability to see that love is not a ledger, that security is not a stack of bills, that the richest man in the world is the one who knows when to let go. Adewale sits in the ruins and weeps, not for the money, but for the family he starved while the feast rotted in the ground. He is, at last, the poorest man in the world. And no amount of digging will ever bring them back. If this story found you in the right moment, if it made you feel something you didn't expect, then maybe it's worth sharing. Not for us, but for the next person who needs to hear that the things we hoard often destroy us faster than the things we lose. Thank you for staying until the end.